This presentation is really kind of, y'all, a work in progress because the world fell apart again on Monday, just when you think that it doesn't, oil prices go negative. And I wanted to try to give you as much news and information as I possibly can as we work through this process. So bear with me as I get through some of this. But first, we have to start with some funnies because life is too hard if we don't. I wanted to introduce you to my friend Sue, who's 31 and has been homeschooling since March 16th. So she's doing a great job. We're really proud of her. Y'all, for those of you who are homeschooling at home, I feel for you because this is a really tough job, and doing your job plus that job, I don't know how you do it, and I'm grateful that you do. I don't think this needs a whole lot of introduction. I think we've all been here. But make sure you know how you look when you turn on the webcam. And then my last and my most favorite one, because I'm a huge college football fan, is that if the CDC told people that staying inside for 14 days would save this year's college football season, the entire South would be locked in their rooms right now. So y'all, please don't screw this up. We got to get to the fall football in a big way. So we talk a lot about at Keller Williams, we're coming into a shift is happening. Y'all, we're in a shift. And there's three pieces to this that I want to make sure you really understand. First and foremost, the fact that we have lost more jobs in the last 4 weeks than the entire job gains we made since the Great Recession is pretty significant. And obviously that happened because we're all locked in home and not working, and COVID has happened. And look, every death is a tragedy. I don't want to take anything away from that. I understand why we've done what we've done, but that has led to the spiraling of so many job losses. I mean, 22 million people have filed for unemployment in 4 weeks. That is on historical numbers that we've never seen. But oil and gas is really our big story because it's the 1-2 punch for Houston. Not only do we have COVID and job losses associated with that, as the oil and gas industry goes, so goes Houston. It represents a third of our economy that touches it somehow. Oil plunged on Monday 321% into negative territory for the first time ever. And that's because, if you don't understand why that happened, it's because we're not driving our cars. We're not taking airplanes. So we've pumped stuff out of the ground, which is great. And now we've filled all the storage tanks. So there's nowhere else to put it. So we have essentially eliminated demand here in America because we've been locked at home. I mean, you think about it as realtors, how much we drive our cars, right? I probably put 40 to 50,000 miles on my car a year. Well, I mean, this week I've put 8 miles on my car. So those three pieces are really what's going to lead us into why this shift is so significant for Houston. This is from Stewart Title, Ted Jones. Just to give you some perspective, 2015, over that 18-month period, oil fell 60% and the industry lost about 150,000 jobs. What's estimated here in the last 4 weeks, oil fell 80%. And the forecast is we could lose up to 250,000 jobs. Most oil and gas jobs are centered here in Texas, Oklahoma, Denver. So it matters to us whether or not you like oil and gas. It does play a part in how our economy and our real estate aspect goes. So with all the negative news, every time you turn on the news, you're hearing contracts are being cut, layoffs are happening, furloughs are continuing to come. And the reality is no one knows how far this will go. What we want you to understand mostly is that the number one predictor of real estate prices is job growth, or in our case, job shrinkage, right? So what happens when people lose their jobs? They're probably not dealing in real estate transactions. Or if they are, it's in a forced seller situation, which is unfortunate. By the fact that we have had job loss, it means it's going to impact our real estate prices. And I want you to understand that. I've talked to a lot of realtors over the last 4 weeks, even this week, and many people say, look, once we're out of this, we're just going back to work as normal. I wish that were the case, but that's not how I see the tea leaves, unfortunately. And what I want you to understand is what current data looks like and why comps aren't necessarily relevant, right? If we look at comps, we typically take a look back in a 6-month period. Well, even if you look back 2 months, it'd be probably fair to say that our real estate market changed pretty dramatically in the last 30 days. So what something sold for 2 months ago, our market and an environment is completely different. So comps are not going to be helpful when you're pricing houses, because we're going to look at it and say, oh, the market seems stable. And for the past month, that's sort of what we've done. That's because closings are 30 to 45 days out. So this week, we will start seeing sales close that went under contract the first week of COVID. And then next week, we'll see the second week, and then the week after that. So we're going to start seeing things as we move forward in this process that are going to rock you a little bit, because we're going to be looking at prices in a rearview mirror. And as we move forward, things are going to start to slide. We are tracking data on our end daily and kind of weekly, looking at what that means. And when you consider what's happening across Houston, you're starting to see inventory start to build. That's not uncommon for this time of year. That's sort of what we expect to see. But this is where it starts to get scary. When you look at absorption rates, and remember, 5 to 7 months is what we would consider to be a balanced market. When you start looking at these absorption rates, in a trailing 12 months, we were about 6 months, so it was pretty balanced. Even 6 months ago, we were a little above 6 into the 7. We were still kind of balanced. And the last 30 days, we've moved to an 8 months of inventory, which, as you guys know, means if nothing new came on the market, it would take us 8 months to sell out of the current inventory. That means in the last 30 days, we have moved into a buyer's market. Why that matters is to go back and understand inventory is rising, so there's more homes on the market, but we've moved into a buyer's market for this. Homes are still going under contract, but they're slower. The left side of the graph are the homes that were going under contract when we first started this process. The right side of the graphs are the pendings that have happened. You can see that those are on a decline. So fewer buyers are actually pulling the trigger on things in this environment. And sellers are typically last to believe the bad news, right? Nobody wants to believe that my house is worth less today than it was yesterday. So you haven't yet seen a significant amount of price reductions. There was a spike of that when this first happened, but those have largely panned out. And we saw the same thing that happened in 2008, 2015, and Harvey, is that the sellers are not putting out price reductions because they don't want to believe the data, and they want to believe that things are going to turn around. Buyers, who now understand that it's a buyer's market, are very less likely to pull the trigger on something they believe to be overpriced in this market. Showings are down 30%, but we're starting to see a recovery. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One, real estate is still essential, and this is the time of year when people need to buy and sell and make moves, so people are starting to get back into that. And then I also think that there's a fair amount of people who are bored and ready to do something else and want to get out and look at houses because they're tired of sitting at home. I have a real big belief that just because we're essential, it also needs to be necessary for us to do our jobs in this environment. And I think that there are definitely people who need to make real estate decisions. So I encourage you, when you're looking through how you're spending your day, just because you're essential, make sure that it's also necessary. So what this means for us is that first, if you're uneducated about this, then you're adding no value to your clients because you're not keen to know what's going on. If you're the agent who says everything is just fine, you're going to lose trust with your client base because everything is not fine. And if you are the one who says, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, everything's going to hell in a handbasket, then you're fear mongering. And so these are three places you want to make sure that you are staying clear of. We think specifically there are 3 steps here of what you can do to kind of not be either one of those things. And first and foremost, we think you've got to understand that what we have been experiencing is grief. The New York Times had an excellent article on this and really came with the only way to describe what this experience has been, because who has ever experienced having to stay home through a terrible time in history? We haven't done that before, and there is grief that comes through that. And so understanding the stages of grief and where you are, where members of your family are, will help you move through it faster because you can identify with what you're experiencing. Some people are still in shock and denial, and you've got to work through this to get to the testing and acceptance phase. You're also going to see this with your sellers because that's one of the reasons why we don't see more price reductions. They're working through a phase of grief as well, and it's probably not appropriate for you to say, well, Mr. Seller, sounds like you're going through a phase of grief and you're in an anger phase. But when you see and experience their voices and see them on the Zoom calls and hear what they're saying and how they're pushing back, know that that's not about you. It's about them working through these stages. Once you get to acceptance, the second step that we see and we believe is that you just have to accept you're going to have to work harder now than you worked previously. And you're like, well, Paige, I can't work harder now. I'm staying at home. I don't have anything to do. You're going to have to work out of that. And we'll share with you here in a second kind of what we've been doing. But I want you to understand and accept that you're going to have to work harder now than you've ever had to work, and just to do what you've always done and possibly even less. We are expecting that on our end, that we're going to make less, but we're going to have to work harder to get there. And I know that's not a pleasant statement. Nobody ever wants to hear that, but the reality is that's just where we are in this environment. What we think it's very important is that during this time, you need to consider where your passion is, if you're in this for the long haul, and that you have to be committed to work every day to get better than the next. If those are things that don't fit into what you want to do with your real estate career, you really may want to evaluate your real estate career, because it's never going to be harder to be in real estate than it is right now. For those of you who heard my other presentation, this was a slide from this and that, and I tweaked it a little bit here for the concept that if you don't love this job, you're not going to work hard enough through this time to become good enough to survive. And I wish I had another way to say this, but I've lived through this in 08, I've lived through it in 15. The ones who will work hard will improve their skills, and they will survive and actually thrive through the shift if you're willing to do it. So step 3 is sort of how you need to figure out how you're going to work smarter and harder in this. I can't tell you for you what that answer is because I don't know your niche. But the process we went through is to figure out where we excelled, what did we enjoy about lead generating, and how do we find creative ways to do that? Because I believe through crisis actually flows creativity. What new scripts are you using that you actually believe in? Because now is a time where you can work on those scripts to make sure that you believe what you're saying. I think it's a great time to figure out what industries you want to target as a result of this in your real estate career. And then how do you get smarter about the trends in your areas that you sell? That's one of the reasons why we watch the market every day and we track those trends that I showed you at the beginning. So we are able to then have conversations with exactly what the market looks like today. We're not looking at the 30-day back comps, which are not relevant in this market. And lastly, and you heard me in my presentation last time, cut your expenses. Cut your expenses. Cut your expenses. I cannot say that enough. And I've got some resources at the end of this and some ways to potentially consider doing that, but both on the business side and on your personal side. To that end, I think it's important to mention why being with KW now matters more than ever. The beauty of Keller Williams is that it is the best way to run your business on the lowest cost platform, right? Your 22 that you pay into your cap a year, you couldn't go out and get those resources, training, and support for that same dollar amount, right? I couldn't hire Karina and have an office and have the training and have Hubert and have Marilyn and pay for all of that for $22,000 a year. So what the beauty of Keller Williams now is that it allows you to do and run your business the best way on the lowest cost platform so that you can keep more of what you earn, which is more important now than ever. Specifically, just to kind of give you some ideas of what we've done. And again, we understand that not everybody's doing what we're doing, and this is not a one size fits all fix to how you should augment your business. But we went through and said, hey, what do we excel at? And we excel in the online space. So we've doubled down on our content, and our traffic has grown 30% month over month because we've made a cognitive effort to double down in what we excel at. So whatever you are good at, this would be the time to work harder at that. We've moved everyone's goals on the team to 20 calls a day. We had different metrics previously. We believe that the metrics we've previously used are wrong moving forward because it just is different. So our team is making 20 calls a day. We have moved to a standing 8:30 daily call script meeting for 30 minutes. And then whoever gets their 20 calls a day first get to set the agenda for our 4:30 daily call. So we've got an 8:30 and a 4:30. And depending on whoever wins the day with their calls, they set the 4:30 agenda, where usually we're either playing an online game together, we're sharing our wins. It's not a long meeting, but it just depends on what those agendas are. And then in terms of market knowledge, we know the neighborhoods that did well and poorly in 2015 because we studied that, and we are targeting those buyers and sellers because we're able to make extrapolations from those times to this time. For example, the energy corridor, we know what happened there, and we're able to extrapolate some lessons learned there to help buyers and sellers who are in that market. So keeping up with your education is going to be really key through all of this. We talked about this last time we met together, but in theory, this is what we do every day. We set our intention and then we do the work. So we're getting up early, we're giving thanks, we're writing out our to-do list, planning our calendar, and evaluating our day. And then the work means we're reviewing our leads and contacts, we're practicing our scripts, we're dedicating time for learning, and then we're making the calls and having the meetings. To that end, this is sort of the way we've devised our schedule, and I'll go through that with you. I don't know about you guys, but we are finding that we are mentally fatigued around 3 to 3:30 every day. And right, it's because there's two reasons. One, it's because we don't have any fluff time built in, right? I'm not wasting 30 minutes in the car driving from one appointment to another where I have time to listen to the radio. So I'm in a process here where I'm condensing all of my workload, and then I've got so much stuff screaming at me. I've got my Skype going off, and my WhatsApp's going off, and my voicemail going off, and my text messages, and my emails, and everybody needs something. And then in many cases, you've got tiny terrorists at home that need a snack or need you to check their homework. Or so we've got so much coming at us that our brains are not meant to handle this kind of overload. And so you are getting so much in your head and you're not being able to get clarity. So what we've developed, we've done some studies with some folks who are neurologists, and through that, this is what we've developed is, first of all, we believe in a media fast, meaning get off social media and get off the dang news for 30 hours at a time or as often as needed. Y'all, the media is designed to create fear. They don't sell good news. Good news doesn't sell. So they have lots of bad news about how many people are dying and all the tragedies and all of this. If you will get off of that, I'm not saying you need to be ignorant about what's going on, but don't let that absorb you, because that will mess with your brain. So we're doing 30 hours at a time of media fast or as needed. Every day we have 5 minutes of gratitude. So you have 2 ways you can do that. You either, one, write out 10 things each day for 5 minutes that you're grateful for, or you write out 2 things and then write a paragraph on a third. Because what gratitude does is it changes the way you see the world. So you work on your gratitude. From there, you spend 11 minutes in prayer or meditation, depending on how you want to handle that. That also helps calm your brain and your mind because you focus on something other than yourself and the troubles. Next, 20 to 40 minutes of exercise or until your head is quiet. That's going to be different from everyone. And you've got to find the exercise that works for you. So for example, 20 minutes on a treadmill for me does nothing because I feel like I'm a hamster on a wheel just going around and my brain's just rapid firing. But 40 minutes of a yoga class works for me because I'm so busy focusing on what I'm supposed to do on the next move that it enables my head to get some quietness. My husband's found that in his jogging, it's the 4th lap around the block that gets him to his headspace. So everyone is different, but continuing that exercise. Then we have our standing 8:30 call of our script practice. We also use that as our news time, where we give all the news that's fit to print, where we give, here's the updates, here's everything you need to know in the world in a brief 5-minute segment. Now don't watch the news. So it allows people to continue on their media fast. That collectively gives us about 90 to 120 minutes of concentration. And we're able to really focus for 90 to 120 minutes. And y'all, that's about what our brains can do in this time because we've got just so much coming at us. After we hit that, which is usually our 20 call time, we move to a fun activity that you enjoy. Whether that's journaling, whether that's coloring with your kids, swimming in your pool, go do something fun. And then we have our 4:30 share your wins call. Now, whether you're on a team or not, there's no reason why you can't partner with other people in the office to have a standing 8:30 call and a standing share the wins call. Sometimes your win is, I got out of bed, I did not wear pajamas today, and I made coffee before 7. That's okay. It's not going to be the same every day, but your goal is to be as productive as you can moving forward. Ultimately, our goals are in this time are these things. We want to work safe and smart. If it's not a safe situation, we don't want our agents out there doing it. Our goal is to be a helper to others. And it may be that our helping is we're picking up groceries and dropping them off, or we're knocking on a door to do a welfare check for a neighbor. It may not be that we're helping real estate wise, but we're helping other people. We are passionate about protecting our mental health during this time. We think that is incredibly important, which is why we've built that schedule the way we have, because what we recognize is we've got to prevent burnout. If we spend all of our time being so overloaded now, then when we get free of the corona lockdown, we have the risk of hitting burnout. If we hit burnout, we will not be in a place where we can thrive through the next course of what this is, because the next course of what this is going to be difficult. So protecting our mental health and preventing burnout are 2 huge things that we really want to work through, which is why I say 3:30, 4 o'clock, it's tough for us to keep moving. And so we're at 4:30, we're done. We're mentally done. And then we're working to find the joy in the situation. We believe that as you see the world is how you do the world. And so coming through this with the aspect of gratitude and prayer and meditation, that will help get you to the joy. We want you to really evaluate your home life. I talked earlier about, cutting your expenses. This is the way we're looking at it. One, we want everybody to be prepared for 3 to 4 months of little to no income. I know that's scary, but I think that that's a realistic possibility for what we're seeing. So if you haven't cut your expenses, cut your expenses. A couple ways to do that is, one, review your credit card bills, see if there's things on there that don't need to be on there. I personally canceled all of my credit cards because I figured there's probably some recurring things on there that I don't know about and don't pay attention to. So now they can reach out to me and say, hey, you didn't pay your electricity this month. Okay, great. Well, then I can add that back as something that I'm willing to pay for. But that subscription to a magazine that I don't need during this time that cost me $60 a year, that can go away, and this will get that taken care of in an easier way. For those of you who have revolving credit debt, I encourage you to find ways to pay that down and then renegotiate your recurring costs. We talked about this last time. Cell phone, cable, electricity, insurance, review your home and car loan payments, see what you can renegotiate on your recurring costs. We had one of our agents that went through this and figured out how to save $750 a month. That's significant. And then he's gonna go do it again next month to see what else he can cut, because he is passionate about making sure that he and his family are prepared if we go to a little to no income for a period of time. Right now, what I think, if I can give you any information and advice, please recognize that we're in a shift. We're not going into a shift. We are in a shift now, and I encourage you to take action. Cut 10% of your household and your business budget, and then, like one of our agents is doing, cutting it again 10% in a month while we're in a downturn. If you qualify for PPP, I would encourage you to apply. I don't know if it works for you or not. We currently are out of the first stimulus money, but there's $300 billion coming again. And so you want to be in a position to be in line with your application. So when that money becomes available, you can qualify for it. We found that asktrim.com, if you're too busy, will renegotiate your cable, phone, internet, and credit cards. They take 25% of what they save you, but the savings could be significant enough that it makes sense if you don't have the time to do it yourself. Someone else had used energyogre.com. It's $10 a month. It is a monthly subscription, but they manage your electricity plan to make sure that you are getting the lowest cost energy savings that you can. So wanted to throw those out there as two potential resources. I know this has been a plethora of great news, and it's been so much fun to hear how the shift is impacting us. So I thought we'd give you a little silver lining. One, everybody just needs to see a cute baby goat. So there's that for you. Courtesy of my mother. She sent that to me one day when I was having a rough day, and she said, I just think you need a little baby goat in your life. So there's some silver lining. What I want you guys to know is that Houstonians, and especially real estate agents, are resilient. It is the nature of who we are because we're entrepreneurs. And Houstonians, more than anyone, know how to survive disasters, right? I mean, we've lived through a few. And I want you to know that this too shall pass. We'll get through it. It's going to be harder. Just because we are coming out of getting back to work doesn't mean that the hard stuff doesn't start. But I think when you recognize where we are and where we're going, it will allow you to thrive if you accurately see what the tea leaves look like. People will still have real estate needs. Just because we're going into a recession, people still need places to live. Buyers will need to buy, sellers will need to sell, and renting will continue to happen. So the sky is not falling, but we want you to understand that things will probably not be the same. We are probably not going back to life as we once knew it. I mean, think about this. how awesome is it that we've got however many people on this call together, and it's more than our office can hold for a regular team meeting, but we're all able to be together. So really creative, great things are coming out of this. I think we might see that buyers now more than ever would prefer to see a virtual tour of a home before deciding to go and see it, which then means you're compressing your work and getting more time back. So I think we're going to see some really great things come out of this, and that's the silver lining. Just understand that it's not going to be immediate, and there's going to be some hard work to do on the back end. Those of you who heard my other presentation, we had a Benjamin Franklin tracker that our team does. The Benjamin Franklin tracker, in short, is sort of a how to build daily habits. We've done a Corona version of it. It's rudimentary, it's not that complicated, but it does incorporate some of the things that we've talked about with gratitude and meditation and exercise. So if you want our Corona tracker, just send me an email. I've got my email up there, and just let me know. We'll shoot that over to you if that's helpful for you guys. So I think I've talked a blue streak. Let me stop the sharing here and see what you guys need.